Welcome to this video where we step into a 1994 coal mine where miners turn raw timber into life-saving roof supports. From chopping the logs to carefully installing each beam underground, every set of timbers kept the tunnel safe. Enjoy.
Now he has cut the ribbons off that were left standing from the chainsaw, and he has approximately a 6-7 inch taper on the leg, and the leg is now about half the diameter of the original prop at the butt end. Now what Buzzy and Bob are going to do is they're going to set two 3-piece sets up on the outside to show how they fit together and what purpose they serve. So in order to stent the legs and keep them firmly in position, they're going to dig some shallow hitches into the ground to stabilize the legs when they set them. Now this 3-piece set is understandably smaller than a lot of actual installations are, because it is done primarily to show how the timber is made, how it's handled, and what purpose it serves when it's put into place. What Bob and Buzzy have done is stood the leg and temporarily held it in place with 3 short plank. Now they're going to get an improvised set of measuring sticks to hold in place to see what height or length the next leg should be, so that when they make the collar will set on the 2 legs in a very close to level position. Buzzy has gotten his length. He has marked the piece of timber, both for length and for the collar. He'll now measure from his mark to the end of the timber to determine the length of the other leg. Now that the legs are temporarily secured, they'll measure the length of the collar between the notches. They're now taking the collar from the mine car, placing it in the sawbuck, turning it to see which is going to be the top side. If it has any bow or anything less than straight, they'll turn the bend up. This is where the weight will come from, and this will actually be a stronger piece of wood with a slight bend than if it was perfectly straight. Now he's made a series of notches down into the timber. Then they're going to turn the timber, and while the saw is running, he'll cut a slight taper on the collar. This is the part that will be facing up, where the support is needed. That small notch will be explained later. While Bob turns the piece of timber, Buzzy will split out the portion that he sawed the notches out to the depth that's desired. For the collar. Now most of this is done by feel and by sight. What he's doing that last move is cutting the bark and the sapwood away from the base of the notch at the bottom of the collar, so that when it's in place that you will have solid wood bearing against solid wood rather than bark and sapwood, to have a more secure and better fit. Now the previous measurement that was taken is now carefully marked on the collar so that the spacing between the notches coincides with the measurement that they took separating the two legs. The first cut was to saw the piece of timber to the proper length. The second cut will be that which is remaining on the collar between the notches. Again by eye, Buzzy is sawing 3 or 4 saw cuts into the collar, which then will be split out with an axe to create the notches. Now they're placing a wedge which is cut parallel into both notches to see that both notches are parallel to one another. They're bringing the collar over and setting it on top of the legs. And as you can see, the measurements were accurate and the collar fills the space completely between the two legs. Now you can see a gap at the end of the collar, and this is a deliberate gap. As the initial weight gets applied to the collar, this is a built-in adjustment that collar can crush the leg, or the leg can yield to the collar's forces and not break. And in the future, sometimes it'd be a long time or for years, the gap that's at the end of the collar and the top of the leg will have almost closed tightly, because now that pressure has exerted sufficient force to press the collar down and close that gap. So putting the taper on that leg is like a built-in adjustment that is put to the timber so that it doesn't break. Now the small flat surfaces that Buzzy put on top of the collar when he made the notches are going to serve a very useful purpose, as they're going to portray now. That flat surface affords a very smooth area for that wedge to be driven in to tighten that collar tight against the rib. This way, when you apply pressure to that wedge, the wedge has a flat surface to ride on and it doesn't break the wedge. Now we have two small sets, three-piece sets standing in place. They're wedged and they are held in place with temporary supports at the bottom. What we're going to do is bring two mine plank in and lash the two sets together so that they are stable and will stand securely, while we put some laggings across the two collars and then show a 4-pole being put into place to help support any unstable coal in a hard pitch vein or unstable roof in a slow pitch vein. Bob has temporarily secured a plank on one side of the leg. He's now securing at the other side. They will duplicate that on the other side of the two legs. And this should make these two sets stable enough to cross the collars with laggins and 4-poles. The first lash is in place, and Bob is spiking the second lash on the far side of the collar. This will keep this collar from rolling off while we are progressing with the laggins and the 4-poles. What we are doing now is we're bringing the mine cart, the timber cart in, and this has got some laggings and mine plank on, which are going to be used to span on top of the collars from one set to the other. Now what Buzzy and Bob are doing is they're placing the laggins, and this is called lagging off a set. They are bringing the laggins up from the bottom and then putting the other end up towards the face on last, and placing them so that they are in a rather secure position and don't roll. And they are usually shifted around a little bit so that they fit and lay in position on their own. They are customarily not fastened with spikes or any other fasteners. Now they'll next bring the mine plank, and these will stick out beyond the width of the set. But this is because we are only portraying a small set for convenience sake, to show how these sets are constructed. So Buzzy has brought the mine plank up between the laggins, turning it when he has it up between the roof and the laggins, and then placing it in position crosswise to the laggins. Depending on the conditions of the coal, if it's hard pitch and you're using coal as your support above the timber, these planks can be spaced skin to skin, tight together, or if the coal is real firm and coarse, they can be spaced apart 3-4 inches. So now we have a bridge set consisting of many pieces of timber. Primarily the legs, the collars, the laggings, the mine plank on top, wedged securely into position, and this should give adequate support to work underneath these sets in total safety. What Bob and Buzzy are doing now is putting 4 poles from on top of the inside collar to the bottom of the second collar, and this provides temporary roof support to secure the face area from the last permanent set to the solid face. What we have in place now are 3-4 poles that are filling the gap between the last set and the face of the coal. So we are placing mine plank on top of these 3-4 poles, which will then complete temporary support from the last secure set to the face, providing total safety for the men to be working the coal or whatever other work is necessary at the coal face. These 4 poles in this instance are extending out towards the face from the last set about 30 inches. Depending on the conditions of the coal, how friable or free it is or how firm, dictates how far and what size 4 poles are used. But they always provide temporary support and roof protection between permanent sets.